All right, moving on to the next tie, we got Barca Dortmund, man. I think this one I'd say, you know, we had Barca as overwhelming favourites, you know, and to be fair, you know, they won the first leg very convincingly. But that second leg, they also showed some vulnerability, you know, surprisingly. Yeah. I wasn't watching the match live because obviously I was watching the other game. However, I remember checking the stats at half time, and Barca didn't have a single shot in the first half. And I was thinking, wow, like is this the same Dortmund that are 12th on the table, giving Barca a tough time? And when I watched the match back, I did see an aura of vulnerability from Barca in that against a team that shouldn't really, in my opinion, on paper this season, be causing them that many problems. You know, so I'm looking at that Barca on the high line, and I'm thinking, you know, on their day they can be got at.
My thing with that game, because I had a game, I was watching the PSG Villa game, isn't it, at the same time? But I had a Dortmund game in the background and Barca. To be fair, when I looked at when the way the game was going, it looked like Barca already played like they were already through already.
Right.
That was what I was saying. Yeah, it felt like they played like because Pedro was on the bench even. So yeah, Pedro was on the bench. I'm not sure who else they didn't start from their normal line, but they had Lopez as well. Do you know what I mean? So it's like
good player though.
Lopez. Yeah. But it's like for me, it's like if they knew that they had to win this game, Pedro of course would have started. Do you see what I mean? And the way I saw the game going, obviously Dortmund they went all out for it.
Yeah.
Right from the beginning, they were pushing Barca back. Barca lost control of the game. But the biggest thing about that thing was, you see Barca's high line. I've said before already, it's what gives, it's kind of like PSG, it's what gives them the strength in terms of they push up the play up and they're allowed to leave Rafinha and Yamal high up the pitch. They're allowed to lead them high up the pitch so they can dominate games.
It's risk reward, I guess, because if they didn't play with that high line, they might not get as much joy in the attack.
Yeah, because they would have to be coming back. But at the same time, Dortmund really exposed the high line. Do you know what I mean? It showed that if you can defend really well, and you can counter properly, you can actually expose them. But of course, at the same time, if they were playing at their best, because Yamal didn't have his best game either, Rafinha didn't have his best game, Lewandowski didn't have his best game, and also Pedri didn't even start. And those are like their four key players. So obviously, in a different setting, they might perform. So I'm not really there's not much to really analyze about this game because at the end of the day, they were 4 up. It's hard to analyze it. But the biggest thing for me that came out of that game that I can see was that they're going to have to play Inter next. And that high line, Inter playing with wing backs. Do you know what I mean? Because the thing with Inter is that they don't have to defend you with their wing backs.
Yeah.
They can be very compact centrally, whilst their wing backs are very high up the pitch. So if Barca are playing with the defenders on the halfway line, and Darmian and whoever's playing wing back on the left is already halfway up the pitch already, that's already going to exploit you because we already know their wingers are not going to track back.
Fair point, yeah.
So I feel like Inter can cause Barca a lot of trouble.
So systematically as possible.
Yeah. So that was the biggest thing that I took out of that game, is that Inter's wing backs, and also the fact that Inter play with 2 strikers up top. Like most teams don't play with 2 strikers.
Yeah, so it's a different proposition. Yeah.
So you're playing a high line, but your high line has 2 centre backs there, but they have 2 strikers up there. You're gonna have to go man to man with quick players.
Yeah. So how do they defend it? They're gonna have to tailor the system slightly, or they might not and just think we can overwhelm Inter. Who knows?
Yeah, they're gonna try that. But then at the end of the day, if you're gonna try to pressure Inter, who can defend really well, and you've got wing backs that are gonna fly up the pitch, and you've got 2 strikers that are gonna be up top. Because the reason why I love Inter's, which we'll get to Inter. The reason why I love the system so much is that they don't have to stretch themselves. That's the thing. They don't have to stretch themselves to defend well. They don't even have to stretch themselves to attack well. You see what I mean? They can literally stay in there.
Zaghi has them so disciplined. We'll get onto Inter.
We'll get to them. Yeah.
So I was gonna say, like, I had a question. Like, you know, somebody asked me before this tie, who's the team that's impressed you the most in the Champions League? And mine was Barca. You know, obviously they finished second in the group stages, and on the last day they could have finished top. You know, they just missed out. Scored a hell of a lot of goals. But then it hit me. They've had the easiest fixture run out of all the teams remaining.
Who did they play before?
Before this Dortmund tie, Benfica, they played Benfica. They also played Benfica and Dortmund, both in the group stages.
And I feel like Benfica gave them trouble in one of the legs of war, in one of the ties, from what I can remember. Not clearly, but I feel like Benfica gave them some trouble. The same way Dortmund also gave them trouble as well.
I'm saying. Look, I remember the Bayern game. They absolutely trashed Bayern at home. You know, I think that was like their homecoming this season where I was like, all right, cool, everybody stand up and take note of this Barcelona team. But since then, it's been questionable opposition. Other than, I would say, other than Bayern and Atalanta, they were a difficult team. But other than that, they've had fairly straightforward. When I say straightforward teams, I mean teams that on paper you expect Barcelona to be turning over fairly easily.
Yeah.
You know, so I think now this is probably the second game of the entire campaign that I'm seeing Barcelona go into a match where I don't know or I don't necessarily expect them to win easily. You know, against Bayern Munich, that match was like, okay, cool, you're not sure who you're going to pick to win. Some may say they might pick Barcelona, but at least it was a conversation. Now Inter is another match like that where, okay, cool, you know, you can see either team winning. But prior to this, Barcelona have been resounding favourites for all their matches. Yeah. So whilst they've impressed me, you know, this is probably for me their second proper test of the whole campaign, and we're in the semi-finals. So it's one to look out for.
Yeah. My thing with this Barca team, which I agree with you as well, and it's getting me to think about their run as well, is I've seen them struggle against Benfica, and I've seen them struggle against Dortmund as well, even though they ended up winning. However, one thing I think is, if you look at the way that team is set up, which I've praised them as well, like I think they've been very, very exciting. Yeah. Although I think PSG have been the most exciting team, it's a very, like, they play a very high line, you know, but at the same time, their front four are very offensive. Like Pedri, you know what I mean? Like, although sometimes it's Olmo as well. It's Olmo, Rafinha, Lewandowski, Yamal. If you remember when Barca at their peak, when they were playing this very, very high line, they had midfielders that were going to keep the ball at all times. So like Xavi, Iniesta, Busquets, they'll keep the ball in rotation. Yeah. So the thing is, they're smothering the ball away from you. So even though they're in a high line, they're not giving you that many chances to hit them on the counter. Yeah. But this Barca team, although it's very good offensively, and because of that high line, they can attack a lot more because of the high line. Yeah. But they're not keeping that ball as well as the other team.
Agreed.
Do you get it? So if you're not going to be able to keep that ball, it means if you can't keep, like how Barca were doing 70%, 75% possession. If you can't keep the ball that well, the other team will always. The other team's going to have a chance to have more of the ball. Agreed. So do you get that? If the other team's going to get more of a chance of the ball, then you're giving them more of a chance on the counter against you. Yeah. They just haven't faced a team yet that can exploit them properly on the counter to like complete. And I think Inter could be that team. But then the thing is, like Dortmund showed that in the second leg. It's just that obviously they were 4-0 down already at that point. Benfica showed that, but they lost in the end anyways. And I don't know if they had a red card or something, but I feel like this Barca team is the way they've set up for a team that should have a midfield that's more reserved than what they have. Yeah, so I think there's a lack of balance in that midfield there that could cost them. But yeah, that's my only thing with Barcelona.
That's Barcelona, right? So just to round up with Barcelona, Rafinha and Lamine Yamal, both standout attackers. With Lewandowski, actually, you know, an old Lewandowski still pulling his weight with the goals. Yeah. Do you think they are worthy Ballon d'Or contenders if Barcelona won the Champions League?
I think you were saying earlier on about how you could even explain about how you don't, in terms of like the options after Messi and Ronaldo, and what the options are.
Yeah, I believe there's been quite a come down in terms of, you know, how we view the best players in the world and Ballon d'Or, etc. You know, Messi and Ronaldo set really high levels. We're naturally slightly underwhelmed because we're looking for the next Messi and the next Ronaldo, but unfortunately, that might never exist. It might not exist in our lifetime. It might. We don't know, but it's hard to. That's a hard blueprint to follow, kind of thing.
Well, of course, I mean, there's still players there like Mbappe, Vini, Yamal.
Agreed. Obviously, but this season, you know, the candidates that are usually stand out. The ones that play for Madrid. They haven't done what they usually do.
They haven't done what they usually do. Yeah.
So now it's like we're looking at the tier below them now, and that's no disrespect to like the Yamals and the Rafinhas, but I can't put them on the same tier as the Mbappes and Vinis just yet in terms of what they've achieved so far in their careers. Talent-wise, they're talented, but they're still like they haven't done it for the length of time that those players have.
Of course.
So that's why I ask, like, in your opinion, the Yamals and Rafinhas, are they worthy candidates or?
I don't think Yamal I don't think this is the year for Yamal, man. I mean, Yamal, star boy, the future's for you.
There's only one star boy, please.
Saka, of course.
There's only one star boy.
But it's not his year. I mean, it's not his year.
Why do you say it's not his year, though?
I think, like, for me, when I'm looking at Ballon d'Or, technically for me, the season that Salah has had, it has to go to him. Yeah. So for anybody else to compete with that, you have to perform on that same consistent level. And Yamal is not that. Like Yamal's you know what I mean, an exceptional player. But Yamal is not that player yet. He's not been that consistent. What was it? I think
when you say consistent, so do you mean, are you saying that
like output?
Is it?
Output.
His output.
Yeah, because
okay,
you mentioned output just now. You literally obviously like if we're using the eye test, Yamal's amazing. Do you get? But like the output, like Salah's could possibly end the season with 30 goals and 20 assists. Like one song
has not been done since Thierry.
And Thierry was what, 24 goals and 20 assists.
Yeah.
When someone does something like that, like you need, and they win a league title with it as well. It's not just useless goals. You have to like for like for someone to beat that.
Yeah.
You have to do something very special, and that could be maybe win the Champions League. But if they were to win the Champions League, it would be Rafinha for me that would be competing with Salah, not Rafinha competing. It would be Rafinha competing, not Yamal compete with Salah.
I guess Rafinha's been a bit more talismanic. Than
especially
Yamal.
because of his output in the Champions League, because then we'll start looking at Rafinha's goals differently, because we're like, okay, cool, you have 13 goals in the Champions League, but your 13 goals led to a Champions League. Do you get it?
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, cool, that's different.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm trying to say? So like for me, Rafinha would have to win the Champions League to overcome that. Because if you look at the league, Rafinha has, I think, maybe 11 goals or something like that compared to Salah. There's no comparison in terms of output. You see what I mean? So he has to do something amazing in the Champions League to even compete with that. And even then, I feel like Saka, if he didn't get injured, I feel like Saka could have competed. He was getting a goal a game already. And of course,
don't let the ops hear you. The ops won't like that.
Come on, man. You know what Saka does? A goal a game. Saka, a goal a game. This guy was the main player for Arsenal.
Goal contribution again.
Goal contribution again. Yeah. Goal contribution again was getting a goal contribution again. He was the main guy carrying the team, dominating teams. He was the driving force before the injury came. Do you see? And he's come back from the injury. Look at what he's done against Real Madrid. You know what I mean? Like I feel like if you're putting Rafinha in that context, you would have to put Saka in there, but of course the injury killed it for him. And obviously like Vinny and Mbappe, they've had sort of inconsistent season. So I think it's Salah, but if Rafinha wins the Champions League, then there's a debate there.
So out of the two, you're saying you would put Rafinha ahead of Yamal if it came down to it, if Barcelona won the Champions League as Ballon d'Or contender. Okay, that's fair enough.
Yeah.